regardless, I don't think he's used it as an excuse. And nobody's trying to use it as an excuse. It was really, really great fight, and I thought the right guy was.
For sure.
His hand was raised. Now, quick side note, Edson Barbosa that night was told his wife was going into labor, caught an earlier flight, and was there in time for the birth of his daughter. So congratulations to him, his wife Bruna, and their new lovely daughter. That was great news to hear. I mean, I know a lot of these athletes kind of cut it close, and sometimes they plan around, and who knows if he was cutting it that close. I actually was talking to the wife when I was trying to book Edson, and she had kind of like, I guess we'll say, disappeared. But knowing now what she was going through, it's like, oh, wow, I almost feel like a jerk for, hey, let's circle back, you know, can we, you know, on fight week. But she's really nice, and she's who I've used for the last few years to book her. So I want to shoot her congratulatory WhatsApp message. But here on the show, I'd like to publicly congratulate the Barbosa family.
Hey, speaking of that record, George, making record time at that turnaround from fight to baby delivery, does it beat Forrest Griffin's record post his second fight?
Probably, because he had to come from Brazil, though. That's a 10-hour flight.
He had the Dana White jet, though, for that one, right? Didn't he?
He did, but the Dana White jet still has to be a good 10 hours. I mean, if you look at Brazil, it's way down there in South America. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess my answer really is I don't know, but I would imagine Philadelphia to Florida, probably closer than Brazil to Las Vegas. Yeah, I don't know. But didn't Stipe also have a close call after he lost to Dana White? Or, sorry, to Daniel Cormier? He also got a private jet, and he was flying back to Ohio. And I think that birth happened soon thereafter as well.
Explains that post-fight interview you did, though.
Which one?
Where he didn't really want to answer anything.
He didn't want to answer anything.
He's answered everything.
And then afterwards, how come I haven't gotten what I want?
Yeah, that's kind of cost him. You know, that fight we're going on, what are we, March? April 1. Happy April Fool's Day.
Wow.
He's 9 months removed from losing the title.
Man, it feels like longer,
just not even been a fight booking. There's been fight rumors, but no fight booking as of right now. It's not like you could say, but he's fighting in June, George. No, he doesn't have a fight yet. So I don't know if he's in a doghouse or if he's being very, very selective. And it sucks because I just talked about lightweight and how confusing things are, how complex things are there. At heavyweight, you got a world champion who is fighting off a back injury. And when he comes back, has no interest in fighting a contender. He wants the money fight and possibly a few others or possibly retire. We don't know. It's tough to come at DC because DC has been a company man for so many years, and the UFC really, really wants to, quote-unquote, take care of him. Now, I don't know what he's done different from others. I don't know if he's subbed in late or maybe because he took those – remember the stuff that happened with John Jones and he had to face Anderson Silva or the quick turnaround with Derek Lewis. I don't know. But Dana really wants to take care of him. Now, at the same time, Dana stands to make a lot of money from Lesnar versus DC as well. So could that be that's just dressing, you know?
But with St. Pierre gone, he's kind of like that poster boy.
Could be,
like how
yeah.
You're supposed
represents
to do
the company well.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that when you go, I mean, now SportsCenter kind of means something different because they're partners.
But think about it. 2 times they've had to say, it's too bad you lost. And then they come find an allegation or whatever, or suspension, and they go, you're the champ again. Oh, it's vacant. Oh, well, you're not, you know, like they've had to have some very, very unpleasant conversations with DC. So maybe that's why he has a soft spot for him. But my point is, Miocic is not, I mean, it already looks like Dos Santos is facing Ngannou. And how does the winner of that maybe not surpass Miocic while he sits on the sidelines?
Just being a winner alone, let alone if something like devastating happens or something crazy, which when you put
imagine if Ngannou blasts
right?
JDS, he may even supersede Lesnar. Remember, he was on a trajectory last year before he got stopped a couple fights in a row, but he seems to be back. I mean, that's a whole continent that the UFC wants to penetrate into because of all the different countries that are producing not just MMA talent, but a lot of sports talent. So imagine having someone that can speak English, has a solid build, is young, is exciting, and to be able to, you know, take your sport to that continent, that could be, you know, massive for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. But regardless, I'm getting off track here. Back to Philadelphia. Big congratulations to Justin Gaethje over Edson Barbosa. What did you think of that fight, Gus?
I thought it was great. I thought it was everything that we thought it was going to be. They both just really went in with reckless abandon. I mean, yeah, there's technique and all that, but you could tell that both of them knew at certain times you're just going to have to push the pace because you can't stand in front of each other like that. They hit way too hard, and Justin was patient, and he found his. But I think more so than Edson, little by little, there were just a few exchanges where he was just missing, and you were like, uh-oh. One of those is going to land, and I think it's really going to punch Edson's button.
Some uppercuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, some uppercuts that Gaethje was throwing. A couple were missing. Edson also went nice once to the liver of Barbosa.
Yeah.
Sorry, of Gaethje. And Gaethje even admitted that may have been the hardest shot he took. I'm telling you, Justin Gaethje must have cement, like a cement block for a head, because he's taking some shots that they just bounce off. No big deal. That others would just immediately go out.
But who have we known that just keeps that their entire career? Like, the closest guy you could say is maybe Mark Hunt, and he's been KO'd.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it only lasts so long, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to spend a lot of time at 155 pounds because there's a lot to talk about. I mentioned the other two cards, and they had main events, Grand Prix fights that will factor into a lot of this chatter. But I do want to just say a couple things. 11,123 were in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Wells Fargo Center. Just over 1.1 million was the total gate, and the bonuses. I'm doing this early because last time I think I got till Wednesday and I had barely announced the bonuses. Justin Gaethje versus Edson Barbosa, and when I heard that, guys, I thought, really, a one-round fight? But as I rewatched it, man, they really delivered. I thought Sodiq and Moraes had a good fight. And I know, Dan, you're always looking towards the bottom when it comes to the bonuses, but this one was the fight of the night. See, Gaethje could have got a performance of the night. You see what I'm saying? Paul Craig and Jack Hermanson also got performances of the night in addition to the other guys for fight of the night. But that leaves out, like, a Josh Emmett. Boy,
yeah,
that was clutch. That was like 9th inning. You're about to lose the fight, and bow, he caught Michael Johnson. That was pretty amazing. It was one other one that I really liked. Desmond Green. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will say for fight of the night, Marina Rodriguez versus Jessica Aguilar. That was a good fight.
Oh,
both those ladies scrapped, went back and forth. That could have qualified too, but that was a preliminary fight.
Here's what I want your opinion on, though. It's that close that in the end, could something as small as, oh man, we know Edson's about to have a kid, let's just throw him that.
No.
You really don't think so?
I
really
don't think so.
Think about how many times we make decisions like that.
No, because I just think if they do that, then they're going to say, like, oh, boy, Borg's been through a lot. Let's give him money.
I'm not saying they say it publicly. I'm just saying behind the scenes when they're talking to each other, they just go, oh, this is such a hard decision. We want to get to that press conference. You know what? He's going to have a kid. Just give it to him.
I would say yes.
They do this every week.
Maybe if it's a tiebreaker, but I don't really think that they start their line of thinking.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. But what I'm saying is, if there were a card, say, once every 2 months, then I think, yeah, they'd sit there and they'd go, all right, who deserves it? But I really think they're so used to doing this over and over again that they just get lazy. And I think every once in a while they just go,
okay, that I agree with. I bet you on Monday they'll go, we fucked up. I mean, they won't say it publicly, but they'll go, oh, wow. Turns out this one was better, or this one's getting a lot more buzz or traction. We may have messed up there, and now I don't know if somebody opens up a checkbook and says, let's send this guy or gal something, just to make up for it, or who knows.
I would say yes in every universe that makes sense goes, but not for this fight. I can't agree with it for this. I think this fight's a bad example. I guess just what I'm trying to say is because it's a main event fighter. Now, if Edson was not in the main event on the main card, or even more so on the prelims, then I would be like, that's definitely got to be what made them choose. But the fact is,
I keep looking at Emmett and I just go, how do you
like you said it, I think they get lazy, man. And I think I mean that in being nice to them in their defense, but I also mean it as a fair and legitimate criticism. I just think you get lazy about it after doing so many.
How would you guys have done it?
What I mean by lazy is just maybe, oh man, I wasn't really paying attention to that fight. What did you think? That sort of thing. Where I think if there weren't so many cards in such succession, I think they would all sit there and make sure they got it all right. I just feel like they've gone through the motion so many times that there's probably a lot. Sometimes when we come in on a Monday, right, and we go, hey, did you catch this card or whatever? And maybe two of us will go, yeah, and the other one will go, I caught the highlights. There, that sort of thing. And then we lean on each other.
Unless they get pulled out to the back because there's drama, they're watching. They got headsets on. And they're watching from as good of a seat as you can, and I just think they have everything they need, all the resources they need. Hit a replay, any types of notes, that one or the other's taken. So I don't think that they would goof that one up.
I got you. I would just say I would give Emmett instead of Hermanson. I'm a big Hermanson fan, but Hermanson had the co-main event, and he made a big spot with that. So that's kind of your reward there. How
Hermanson did tap a black
He did.
belt from Renzo Gracie. That was pretty impressive. I would say, yeah.
But comparing to Craig, though, because he's the other guy who got it, and even though Craig has gotten a last-minute triangle before, the fact was he's still getting his ass kicked for 2.5 rounds of the fight and having to come back and win, and that's just always impressive. And you go back and look at his record. Now, I'm a big fan of Paul Craig, but let's just say you could argue that there's some happenstance in some of those wins, and he could be toward a bottom rung of the totem pole. Now it's at the highest level here in the UFC. But for what that's worth, so the fact that this guy is pulling stuff out, like, man, I'm a big fan of that. So give it to him.
What would you think of Hermansson? The way he trapped the arm.
I love it.
That was very impressive. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Boa choke. Most people call it arm and guillotine, which is not incorrect, but boa choke. I want to put that. That's a cooler name.
I may have gone with 4 performances on this night, and this sounds terrible because I just wish the Barbosa family a lot. But what I would have done is maybe not have a fight of the night and gone with 4 separate performance bonuses of the night.
I think that's
what I really would do is just send a little bit of love to a couple of the other ones, and that would be that. But
I would still stand by giving the girls fight of the night, though. It was
Aguilar and Marina.
I kind of shoot down my argument because I was going to say the benefit of it too is you give it on ESPN Plus, so they see the headlines and go, "Oh, I didn't catch that fight. I don't have ESPN Plus." What is the UFC and ESPN trying to do right now? Sign people up for ESPN Plus. Let's give some award. Let's give some attention down there. And again, not that it should be worth bearing repeating, but yes, these lower income fighters, it's a life changer. And whether they're a veteran like a Jessica Aguilar or an introductory fighter, both those fighters aren't getting paid very much, ladies and gentlemen. And Jag Aguilar has done a lot for the women's division. She's a pioneer, doesn't get her credit, and I don't really see her having that many much more fights or much more success, much less getting a title shot. So let's give her what we can on her way out that she deserves for putting her career out there. And let's also help another prospect back to markets they're trying to penetrate and build stars. And what about a young, capable, attractive Brazilian Muay Thai star? Why not give her some extra money? That's all.
Did you see the picture they took in the hospital afterwards?
Yeah, it was
that
awesome.
Cool.
Rocky style.
I did not see it.
Yeah, they were just both really bloody.
How about this? You made me think of something. What about if someone's been a pain in the ass to deal with?
Of course.
You think that factors in?
Hell yeah, it factors in. I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. That one I could see.
After what Al said originally back in the day, I know that's all they're all squared away. Him and Sean are good, but after what Al Quinta said back in the day, or I think it was public.
You got penalized for 3 of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel it was fairly public, but
was it? But none were. What? Tell me the story.
It was the.
I know the guys that miss weight get punished a lot, but what?
It wasn't a weight.
This wasn't.
It wasn't a weight miss. I think it was a combination of not even just the hotel room, but then I think he came out with some statements and interview stuff, and we've heard about that before, where fighters will say stuff and maybe they won't say stuff for fear of certain things. And Rage and Al didn't really care too much and was just kind of spouting off. And I think that's what started the back and forth. But they're on the same page now. I'm not trying to rehash that, but it's a good example.
We'll spend time on the rest of the card, but I really want to do a dive into the lightweights. But let me just give you at least the results. Jack Hermansson did defeat David Branch, like I mentioned, in the co-main event. Really, really slick submission there in the first round. Josh Emmett defeated Michael Johnson 4 minutes and 14 seconds of the third round. Huge. I mean, that has to hurt Michael Johnson, that loss, because he had won the first 2 rounds, and it looked like at worst he was walking out of there 29-28. Held the third round, even though Emmett turned it on. It was still pretty competitive.
Yeah. So
that's why I say at worst. Michelle Watterson defeated Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I think we all had that suspicion, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
That KK, even though she's only lost to the best, Michelle Watterson can just be troublesome.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how. We used many different adjectives when we were breaking it down last week, and that one did not shock me at all. Even though I stood by Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I just knew that when Michelle Watterson can turn it on, the one thing she has is fast twitch, like fibers.
Yeah.
And so everything she does, she throws and is, even though she's really more of an atom weight, I think she's just one of the more precise strikers and the hardest hitters at 115. What are you guys doing? You guys can throw me off. All right. Next up, Paul Craig defeated Kennedy Zichiku. Oh, boy. I studied this one. Zichikuwu. Yeah, the Z needs to be pronounced more than the Zichikuwu via submission. Sodiq Youssef defeated Shimon Moraes. Marina Rodriguez defeated Jessica Aguilar. Desmond Green got his first finish in the UFC. He defeated Ross Pearson. Kevin Aguilar defeated Enrique Barzola. Kevin Holland defeated Gerald Meerschaert. And then ESPN Plus portion of the card, Casey Kenny defeated Ray Borg. Marina Moroz defeated Sabina Matzo. Alex Perez defeated Mark De La Rosa. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more in the 155-pound division the lightweight division. We'll still keep talking Justin Gaethje, Edson Barbosa, all those guys in the UFC that make up one of the most stacked divisions in all of mixed martial arts. But we're also going to talk a little bit about Bellator and ONE Championship, because they had fights that had big impacts in not only their 155-pound division, but even the USA Today Sports rankings that I've been working on today. So it's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back talking lightweights.
Tell your boss to reschedule that meeting. Call your wife and tell her lunch is off. It's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes.
Tonight at 10 Eastern, catch the action between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Phoenix Suns on NBA Radio, Series 207, XM86, and streaming on your phone. Streaming on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. Speaking of that, let me make a quick announcement. So that if you ever catch part of the show and if you ever hear the show on the Sirius XM app and go, wait a minute, but the baseball game was on. There are times when the show can be preempted on one side and not the other. So tonight's show is preempted on the XM side, but is airing on the Sirius XM side and the app. So just in case there's any sort of confusion, there you go. The call-in number is 877-FIGHT-93, 877-FIGHT-93, or 877-344-4893. And also, hit us up on Twitter at MMA on Sirius XM. Now, that's a nice transition there because Justin Gaethje did fight Eddie Alvarez a while back, about 18 months ago. Eddie Alvarez defeated him. Look at how times change. Eddie Alvarez signed a lucrative contract to go over to ONE Championship. And this past weekend at ONE Championship 92, he lost, guys. He lost. As Justin Gaethje had gotten his hand raised hours before when he defeated Edson Barbosa. Eddie Alvarez was involved in the ONE Championship couple tournaments that they had going out. There was a Grand Prix quarterfinal against Timothy Nastukian. Timothy, by the way. Remember the other day we were talking about names that just get...
Janeth.
Yeah.
All right, so let me tell half of the audience.
We'll call him Tim Nasty.
Half of the audience is thinking that's an April Fool's joke. Yeah. It's not.
It's not. Yeah, he lost. Early Sunday morning, he lost to Timothy Nasty Yukin. Y'all remember Eddie Alvarez was here, and we were talking about his opponent being Tim Nasty. Well, first round, 4 minutes and 5 seconds into it, he got TKO'd, and it just did not look pretty. And even prior to that, Eddie Alvarez just really didn't have much going on. Yeah, Eddie Alvarez has fought in Japan before. That's not foreign to him. Eddie Alvarez has fought in different promotions. That's not foreign to him. In fact,
the weight system's a little easier to make, right?
Yeah. But he, and even in the Donald Cerrone fight, he lost his UFC debut and still became a world champion. Nobody's writing him off. However, in this fight, you can't really point back and go, wow, but prior to, he was doing this, he was accomplishing that. There wasn't just much going on. It's like almost like his head was just back in Philadelphia or something. I don't know. I certainly hope and I believe that he'll be able to shake it off and come back and do something. The only problem is this Grand Prix will play out. So he's out of that. And he's just going to have to go out there and fight other lightweights that ONE Championship has in the meantime until he can maybe get on some sort of a 3-fight win streak and maybe face somebody or face the winner of this. I'm sure he hopes it'll be Tim Nasty, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, now I should have done my research, but anytime there's a tournament, if you look at the winners, a lot of them didn't start in the beginning of the tournament. They end up being reserves. I don't know if they already have somebody pitched for that.
That is one way.
But you could say Eddie Alvarez could be that guy. Bracket? Yeah, that if something were to happen to someone, which almost in every tournament something does happen, maybe he could reemerge that way. And I would imagine if it is a lot of money that was invested in him.
I've seen it a lot on Tough. Do you remember the Pride Grand Prix? Did that ever happen? Where somebody lost early and then they conveniently brought them back? Yeah.
They also
come in, so and so
I think
step in.
Wasn't Pride even good about having alternate bouts though? If memory serves, I know for the 2000 Grand Prix and the early ones, I can't recall off the top of my head. You guys would know better than me.
Like that Frank Lester guy, I swear I thought he got 3 chances on Tough 5 years ago or something like that. But
the one my favorite alternate, the one I always reference is old school Steve Ginnam, the old police officer that came in and won the UFC tournament.
Jason Vaughn flew. Remember when he jumped in on Tough?
Yeah. Johnny Nunez, he's been able to come in on a couple different occasions. One was when someone fell off the show completely and he was able to sub in. And I think another time. Yeah. But regardless, at the top, by the way, Shinya Aoki defeated Edward Folayang to win the lightweight title. So right now, everyone's gunning for Shinya Aoki. Long time Japanese great. And now a world champion with ONE Championship. Again, defeated Edward Folayang. And all these others in the Grand Prix are now shooting for Aoki.
Wow, yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned Aoki, George. That ties into the point that I was going to make with Alvarez. It was just crazy. I got to go back and watch the full fight. I'm really, really happy with shameful admission there. But really happy with what ONE's doing with the BR app live and making it accessible and stuff. So I'm definitely going to go check that out, guys. But I was just watching kind of the highlights, and I was just so surprised to see how it ended. Not just how it ended, but just even like just dumbing it down, guys. The fact that an Eddie Alvarez fight ended in the first round. Now, to put that in perspective, I just looked it up. Aside from the fight that just ended in the first round this weekend where he lost, before that, in the last decade, there have only been 4 Eddie Alvarez fights that have ended in the first round. He's been on the right side of those, and that fourth one came April 3rd, 2009. So almost 3 decisions in a decade, in other words. So that's just, first of all, how rare it is.
So he's logging the miles.
And only one of the only one of those fights that ended in the first round, I should say, in his whole career, he's lost was to Shinya Aoki. Of course, other than from Timothy this last weekend. So Shinya Aoki is the only person in the whole planet to stop Eddie Alvarez in the first round. I mean, because McGregor was washing him from the first round on, but he was able to survive and get out. And win or lose is just Eddie Alvarez is there to war. So just to see him kind of look uncomfortable and get taken out in the first round was just crazy to me, guys. I really got to go back and look at that one.
What if you guys had to guess? What would you think? Because he always seems like he just doesn't seem like a guy that takes shit lightly. But his performance kind of looked that way.
I think what happened was, he was probably a little overconfident. He got hit in the face, and then immediately in his mind he thought, I didn't take this guy seriously enough. Now, a 75% Eddie Alvarez is still a damn good lightweight.
Yeah.
But so then you would think, hey, I'm still just gonna bite my mouthpiece, put my chin down, and go out there and do something. But you could just see him thinking and thinking and thinking, and not much was happening. In fact, it was pretty unique because one championship has a respectful crowd regardless of where they go, but especially in Japan it's so quiet, and you could hear the wife, she's always going, Eddie,
yeah,
Eddie. So she definitely was in Japan for this one. And you could hear her, and so I'm kind of getting a kick out of that, but I'm watching and I'm thinking, come on, Alvarez, like kick it in gear here, because I was thinking he wanted to go out there, win the fight, put on a show, and make that statement, hey, I'm coming for you, Foley Yang or Aoki or whoever wins.
Right.
At the time, Aoki hadn't won, but like a statement win, you know what I mean? Especially because these guys are getting paid good money, and I think they want to impress the people that trusted them and took a chance on them.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And none of that was kind of happening, so I thought it was bizarre. I mean, look at it. He's with Mark Henry. Mark Henry traveled for this fight.
Okay, he was out in the corner?
Yes.
Good. And
Mark Henry, prepares his fighters as best as he can. So I don't know, Goes. I don't know if there was maybe just an injury that we don't know about. No, see, the minute I say that, I'm taking away from Tim Nasty.
Of course.
So I don't know.
Well, how was his shape, guys? How did his shape look?
I thought he looked all right. Yeah,
it didn't look bad at all. It just looked like you know how it is when fighters kind of do a TV show. We always laugh because they're not out of shape by any means, but how we're used to seeing them on the scale, because again, this is a different weight cutting regimens there at ONE Championship.
I've seen him leaner. How about that?
It reminded me of remember Jason Mayhem Miller when he was on the bully beatdown. He was just leg kicking that bully. That was one of my first Eddie Alvarez introductions.
That dude was so funny. It's unfortunate he tailspin like that, but I still remember when he weighed in Italy, and he knew he was 20 pounds over, and he asked for the towel to come out.
What I'm getting at is, all right, even Eddie Alvarez himself, if you could go back to his debut in the UFC, he lost that, but he was able to come back and win a title, right? So there's been other people, Bellator signing Roger Huerta, right? Benson Henderson, when he went over to Bellator, he lost his first one.
He lost to Korshkov, right?
Andre Korshkov. Yeah. Marlon Moraes, when he came over from
Gil
World Series of Fighting, he lost that.
Oh, yeah,
Marlon Moraes. Depends who you ask if Gil lost.
And now Marlon's fighting for a title. So it's not like a death sentence, per se.
Right.
But
Marlon Moraes is a good example because it's the same camp, and I'll bet you he can still rally and do something, with his career.
What about the Pride guys? When the Pride guys came over, you know who
Shogun lost to
Forrest. It wasn't a loss, but it wasn't what everybody was expecting, and it was Krokop and Eddie Sanchez.
He was.
We all thought he was going to get annihilated, right? And it took him a while, and it just didn't look like the Krokop we're used to.
I remember a friend selling me real hard on that because it was the same buddy that just introduced me to the Pride with the Krokop head kicks. So it was UFC time. He's like, all right, watch it now.
We did the
same thing. He was just hyping everybody in the room. He just hyped everybody up, and we were just like, I mean, yeah, he won.
Remember Nogueira looked like shit against Tim Sylvia?
Yeah, Rampage.
And then he
had Marvin Eastman, right? I think in his first one.
what was that Nogueira quote? I played 14 minutes of his fight and he couldn't finish me. He played 1 minute of mine and he couldn't survive. And I was like, that's a nice spin on that, Nogueira. That's a nice spin.
Yeah.
Now, they stacked this card pretty good because the other big signing was Demetrius Johnson. He got a win, second round submission guillotine choke over Yuya Wakamatsu. Bibiano Fernandez, one of the big names out at ONE Championship. He got a win over Kevin Bellingham to win the bantamweight title. Disqualification via legal elbow, so he's now world champion again. I mentioned the fight with Shinya Aoki over Edward Folayang. Angela Lee, guys, suffered a loss. Yeah, she suffered a loss.
I heard it was a fun fight up until then, though. It was pretty back and forth, no?
Round 5, is when this one happened. Mei Yamaguchi, she won. Gary Tonin, he won. So there you have it. There's ONE Championship 92.
That kid called him Detrius Mouse.
Here at Extreme, right?
Yeah, did we talk about that?
Hey, I got a question for Detrius Mouse.
Yeah, and he just kind of goes, Detrius Mouse. And he goes, all right, I guess that's kind of cool.
He ran with it, yeah, that's pretty funny.
Detrius Mouse.
I'll tell you what, look, before we do Bellator 219, let's take this call here. We got Kevin from Chicago.
Hey.
Wants to talk UFC Philly. What's up, Kevin? How you doing?
What's up, guys? Just a couple points. Man, I'm glad there was those finishes in the main card because the judging was questionable. I was worried. Glad there were some finishes, so we didn't have to leave it to the judges. And that fight with Ray Borg, I thought he won the fight. And Gerald Meerschaert, I thought he definitely won the fight. The Ray Borg fight was a little bit closer. You know, Kenny was able to scramble back up to the feet, make it a little competitive, but I still thought Ray Borg should have got the decision. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on this because in the Josh Emmett fight, the narrative was going that all Michael Johnson had to do was survive the last minute, keep doing what he was doing. He was going to win that fight. He won the first 2 rounds, and he was up in the scorecards and basically got caught and lost the fight. I didn't really see it that way. I thought Josh Emmett won the first round. Thought Michael Johnson won the second round, and third round was dead even. Could have won either way. What do you think of that? Do you think Michael Johnson just had to survive and he was going to win the fight, or what?
All right, so we were watching the fights without any audio, so we didn't have the commentators. But I thought we both believed that round one was close, but that round that went to Michael Johnson. We thought he was up 2-0.
For sure, he won round 2.
And then the Ray Borg fight, man, when he took his back, I thought that might have been curtains. But I was okay with that decision. How about you guys?
I think there's an argument out there. I'd have to rewatch for the first round of Emmett and Johnson being closer, but I thought Johnson was winning the exchanges, and from what I was seeing on my Twitter feed, most of the people that opinions I respect thought so. I do think it's an interesting argument what you brought up, Kevin, as far as the way the other 2 fights were judged, because from a pressure standpoint, I could understand saying Meerschaert and Borg should have got the win. And by the way, even though I picked Kenny, I scored it 29-28 for Ray Borg for whatever that's worth. But according to that argument, the only fault I have with it is that if you think Ray Borg should win, which I agree with you there,
then you think Meerschaert should win.
Then you because then you think Meerschaert then. Sorry, no. Kevin thinks Meerschaert should win by that logic, but I think it's opposite logic where you should think that Kevin Holland should win because Kevin Holland, I think, won based on having better positions, and I think that's
damaging blows as well.
Damaging blows as well.
A little bit of the elbows, or
damaging blows as well. But I guess my point is that Meerschaert wasn't being credited for his offense, which a lot of it was grappling offense compared to striking offense. Sure, we know that that's unfairly done, but just because it's unfairly done or that unfairness is the norm does not make it right. So I feel like Meerschaert should have gotten more credit. But if you think Meerschaert should have gotten more credit, then you should be able to see why they gave it or why they would give a fight to a guy like Kenny too, because obviously they were. I don't agree with it. I had Borg, but I'm just saying with the Kenny fight, they must have been rewarding Kenny's going for the submissions.
No,
right?
Also to be fair, we would have to go check the fights because they don't just have 3 judges there; they'll have usually 5 or 6, and so they'll rotate.
Oh,
so to be fair, we have to look. If it was the
true.
identical 3, then I see exactly what Dan's saying. If it's a different 3,
true.
then what Ricardo Almeida, who I don't know if he judged or not, I don't think he did, would be looking at would be a lot different than a boxing-based judge like Tony Weeks, maybe. You know what I mean?
Here's one thing we can agree on, guys. Counter-punching and going for submissions aren't a safe bet for the judges. I think we can all agree on that. How many times have you seen a counter puncher be effective, or a guy aggressively going for submissions and still not get the decision? I think we can agree on that. But that's about it.
Thank you very much for the call, Kevin from Chicago. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll do our daily debate. We'll circle back to Justin Gaethje, and we still got to talk about that Bellator fight. The main event there was pretty awesome as well, man. Syed Awad and Brandon Gertz. Shout out to both of those studs. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 93.
Can't agree on anything.
Everybody knows it's duck season.
Rabbit season.
Duck season.
Rabbit season. Whether it's food.
Less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
Tastes great. Gambling.
Always bet on black.
I like red.
Black.
Red.
Black.
Red.
Black, dummy.
Or even social media.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
Instagram.
Snapchat. The same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMA Junkie Radio's Daily Debate.
All right, matchmakers to my left and right. Let's have some fun with today's daily debate. The question for today is, after Justin Gaethje's KO win over Edson Barboza this past Saturday at UFC Philadelphia, who do you want to see him fight next? Here are your options. Paul Felder, Anthony Pettis, the winner of Donald Cerrone versus Al Iaquinta, takes place in mid-May, or other. That's where you can fill in who you want, but tell me why. Start off, Goes.
The winner of Cerrone Iaquinta. But I want to preface it by I really would like it to be Al Iaquinta. Because of that group, I feel like he's the true 155er. And I think that's what's making sense in this whole scenario. I like the Paul Felder match.
Oh, because Felder, Pettis, and Cerrone
all
have
done
all
work at
dabbled with
170.
welterweight in the last year. Okay.
Yeah, so that's really the true 155er of that bunch. I think it makes the most sense.
Well, hold on a second. Are you really going to hold Felder and Pettis' quick little dabble?
But you have to nitpick, right?
Okay.
If you look at Paul Felder's last victory, right? What was that, James Vick? That's a good solid victory. Iaquinta's Kevin Lee, I think we could say that one was better. I think it was bigger, right? So to me, that kind of makes sense. But Justin Gaethje's a guy that wants to be active. He wants to keep going. I don't know that he'd want to stick around and wait for something like that.
It'll work, and I'll tell you why. Because he likes 3 month camps. I paid a lot of attention to Gaethje post fights, and you ain't gonna rush him into like 6-week camps or anything like that. Because he's got this frame of mind, and maybe that's what's making him great, where preparation. So he has time before that May fight of Cerrone and Iaquinta to relax, recover, and then when that fight happens, if that guy's ready to go in 2 months, then he can do the proper camp. So I think your time may actually work.
Iaquinta it is then.
Iaquinta, okay. So you're actually
the winner
giving
of
us
Cerrone and Iaquinta.
I was going to say,
I don't want to
prediction
cheat
already?
Yeah.
All right. Dan Tom?
Now I'm interested when we have to lay that breakdown down. But no, honestly, guys, my first and foremost caveat is just keep him away from the title for now. And that's not anything against Justin Gaethje, guys. It's the fact that lightweight, the title picture, always has been and currently is a big mess. We don't need to be adding to it. So I kind of like these options for that regard. Although I will say I think Anthony Pettis' 170 is a bit different than Paul Felder's. Yeah, they both have one fight. And not just the result that Anthony Pettis got a win and Felder got a split decision loss to Mike Perry. I just think there are so many options, which we covered in a previous daily debate, that Anthony Pettis could go to. And it's not that I hate Goes' option. I think he brought up some really strong points, and I would actually love either guy. I actually would rather, gun to my head, I would rather see Cerrone Gaethje, at least from a stylistic standpoint. But I'm going to go with Paul Felder, guys. I like Paul Felder a lot. I think Justin Gaethje would be favored as an opener and would close as a bigger favorite than he opened. But it's a very interesting fight because Paul Felder is durable and he has answers. I think he is deceptively a real dangerous and competitive fight for Gaethje.
He's got a beard too.
Yep, and I think it does well for both guys. And look at it, guys. Paul Felder's current lightweight winning streak is at 4. That is one fight less, I believe, than Justin Gaethje's total amount of UFC fights, win or lose. So I don't know how off it is as far as the meritocracy department goes. My vote's for Paul Felder.
Wow. Good cases,
George.
You know, earlier today I read Justin Gaethje's manager, Ali Abdelaziz. He said, how about Ferguson? And I thought, oh, come on. How are we going to do Ferguson? Ferguson's 13-1 in the division. He's a former interim champ. And right now I'm going to talk about a healthy Ferguson, all right?
Okay.
Because right now, as we know, we're leaving Ferguson alone so that he can get better. But if he is ready to go and he declares himself ready to go, I'm thinking, why would a former interim champ who's 13-1, what does he have left to prove? But here's the problem, guys. By turning down that fight with Holloway and Poirier, because he was offered both, I guess, he kind of hurt himself a little bit in the UFC standing. And here's why. If Khabib's not coming back till November, he has to fight the winner of Poirier-Holloway. They're fighting in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But unless something happens that's serious, they'll be healthy by November. That's all. That's 5 months away. So now we got to jump to November and say the winner of Khabib versus the winner of Holloway-Poirier, that guy's not fighting till about what, February? Best case scenario? Is Ferguson really going to sit out the last fight being 226 this past October all the way to the following February? That would be like 18 months. And it's not to say, oh, that guy's at home slacking or anything like that. Hell no. That guy works hard. So he's one of the guys that maybe ring rust it wouldn't affect. But your biggest fight of the year, I think you want to stay busy. And guess what? You don't get paid unless you fight. So guess what? Maybe the Gaethje fight actually makes sense. Thereby, I would go with other. Yeah.
Well, you knucklehead. Now we have 3 choices.
Wow.
And the tiebreaker's got to be Junkie Nation.
Junkie Nation, yeah. Junkie Nation and Goes win because 49% said the winner of Cerrone and Iaquinta. Second place was Anthony Pettis.
I didn't get that.
Third place, the bronze medal goes to Dan Tom. And I'm in 4th place with other because I went with Tony Ferguson. 1,700 plus votes came in. Well, Pettis is... See, Pettis, even though he dabbled at welter, we all know he's coming back. And Pettis is just a name. He doesn't have to be on a win streak or a losing streak. He's just Anthony Pettis, one of the all-time great lightweights, former WEC and UFC lightweight champ, who's flashy, would be great to see in a stand-up battle versus Gaethje. Therefore, you're automatically sold. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's – I mean, plus he's coming off a knockout over Wonder Boy. That's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
I would have gone with.
I thought that one was going to win, and Cerrone Iaquinta was almost double.
Too, yeah.
Yeah. All right. There's today's Daily Debate brought to you by the @MMAjunkie Radio team. All right. Now we're coming up on the top of the hour. Crossing our fingers to get with our guest, Jorge Masvidal, UFC welterweight, former UFC lightweight. So we could talk to him a little bit about his win a few weeks ago in London, England versus Darren Till. And then he's already got a fight booked against Ben Askren. So lots to talk about with him there. But at the same time, Jorge's a wild card. We don't know what's going to happen. So remember, you can always call in on any of the pockets of the show. It's 877-FIGHT-93 or 877-344-4893. All right. We will be right back in, well, hell, we still got one whole more minute to shoot the shit. How you doing, guys?
Oh, I'm good. How about you?
Good. How about you, Dan? You all right?
All right.
Guys can be followed at Twitter.
I like
at
that shirt.
The Goes. I'm
Yeah,
at
he's
MMA
all
Junkie
right.
George. Dan is at Dan Tom MMA. Thank you. I actually
April Fool's.
despise it. Oh, it was
kidding.
April Fool's?
Why do you despise it?
Freeman's Fitness.
It's too basic. It's too plain Jane.
Hey.
There's nothing flashy about it. I need something
All
with flash, pizzazz. You know what I mean? I like yours better. You know what that is, Dan Tom?
Peru.
Yeah.
Yeah! Woo!
Does it say
Did you
it?
see Cooney's
It
April
doesn't.
Fool's joke?
Hey, Barzola fought this weekend.
No,
so
what
it's
was
all right.
his?
Fresh.
He's got a good one.
He called out Wilder, Fury, and Joshua.
I saw that.
Tournament.
Okay, I know what you're all right, got it. All right, now it's time for the break here. Top of the hour break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds.
And that one goes. Now, feel their wrath.
All right. Like I said, we're going to try and connect here with Jorge Masvidal, but I want to give a shout-out to Julian Marquez, who gave an update on his arm,
Yeah, how's he doing?
shoulder. Remember he had a surgery and he was going to be out
That's
for a
right.
year? Well, I guess they went in there and found out that he also might have a torn labrum. So he actually may be going into another surgery that could keep him out anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months.
Damn.
Yeah.
That first one, I remember
But he's
the
in
muscle
pretty good
was
spirits.
off of the bone.
Mm-hmm.
That's brutal.
Yeah, this one had to do with the lat,
Mm.
but we had kept saying shoulder, you know. And anyway, he seems to be in good spirits considering all this happened. So, and he's come in and co-hosted the show a few times. So, you know, that's one of the dudes you just want to root for, regardless.
Yeah.
Those shoulders are very, very serious injuries. Also, shout out again to the guys from Sportscaster for letting us come in here and chop it up with you guys this past Saturday. It was a lot of fun. Just kind of us calling the fights, having a little bit of fun with that. 4 shots in, though. We definitely had to sober up, get a little bit of water, and call that Uber. Because the proper whiskey, man, it was good.
Well, and the
I liked
drinks from Natalie here at the
The
Sportsbook.
Gozies.
But, you know, I forgot it was 6 fights. So I thought, like, worst case scenario, 5. All right, it'll be rough, but that ain't gonna happen.
4-2. Yeah.
Man, that was tough.
Someone reposted today. I think it was Casey from MMA Fighting. He posted go through old like posters, and it was the Korean Zombie and Dustin Poirier, and it was like when it was on, I don't know if it was Fuel TV or I don't want to say Fuel or something like that, and it said prepare for 5 hours of nonstop UFC, and it was like, remember back in the day when it was like 5 hours?
Yeah.
like crap.
Let's talk to Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco? How you doing?
¿Qué pasa, Autos?
How you doing?
On the road to WrestleMania, man. Oh, wait, wrong show. Hey,
Marco, you're crazy.
You know, I know, I'm so silly.
No más.
So, we got this Justin Gaethje fight that was amazing. I mean, the card was so entertaining, especially the last 3 fights. Josh Emmett did not get a freaking bonus, but a consolation prize, he was the number 1 of the Sports Center's top 10. So, something to look forward to. My question for you guys, by the way, I seen the Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje guys already made for TV because they got a little scuffle during the post-fight interview, and they're going to roll that tape over and over and over and over. So it will be promotion, not malpractice, not to make that fight. But on this ESPN era that we are on right now, I would like to know what the numbers were for this ESPN show, and since the pay-per-view business is now all on ESPN, I am very curious of how ESPN is going to freaking approach this, since they are financially invested on this. What kind of promotion we're going to see on the first takes, on the freaking PTIs. Stephen Espn, he does a good job of freaking opening his mouth or whatever, but I would like to see that approach, guys. Discuss. Peace out.
I think so far, I mean, if you got to give a letter grade, I'd give them an A. I think they've done pretty good, and I'm a guy that loves to chop things down. I think they've done pretty well. The one thing that bugged me, and it happened today, Dan, how do you watch ESPN Plus?
I watch it through I watch it 3 different ways because I'm a nut. I'll go run an errand, so I've actually consistently used it on my phone. I naturally use it on my laptop because I like my laptop. But my smart TV at home, I found out whenever there's a ESPN Plus show, they're really good at making it at the forefront of the menu screen, and I can just plug in and keep my laptop free. So I've honestly used it at all 3 platforms.
Okay, I've used it on the phone, Roku, and Xbox, and I've noticed that all 3 make it a little bit different to get to what you need to do. Okay. And I couldn't find... I had to settle on Xbox One. I had to settle on just the Spanish broadcast because I could not find what I was looking for in English. However, downstairs... on Roku, I was able to get there.
Shout out to Northern Lights.
Shout out to Northern Lights.
Okay.
So if I had to nitpick, that would be the only thing I can think of because I've actually enjoyed everything they've done so far. I feel like they, along with the ticker that you see, I feel like they have talked about it a little bit more. I give them an A.
Heck, speaking of the proper whiskey George brought up, they seem to be getting behind that boat too, not just promoting the UFC. Which kind of leads me into my thing, which is kind of weird because not just the weird thing we were watching this weekend, I'm sure you guys noticed it was like a Conor McGregor commercial like every break, but yet we have this guy, and when we do have the ticker and promotion, I can't speak on this again, guys. When we did the ESPN era, I already said I'm a pretty weak person for reference because I'm not a sports junkie for other sports. I don't watch ESPN, so I'm not going to be able to tell the difference here, guys. So with that caveat aside, I do notice that they're promoting, but they're also, a lot of it is, the Conor McGregor gossip news is also being mixed into that stuff, but yet we're kind of they're doing a bunch of commercials of him, which is technically not UFC. That's his own brand. That brand is not beholden to the UFC. Now, before it sounds like I'm tirading on Conor McGregor or hating on him, I'm not hating on him or ESPN, but this does relate to my one corner, because I'm like goes, I love everything about ESPN Plus, what they've been doing. I've been using it through 3 platforms, but my one problem, guys, is censorship, and that's what kind of relates. That's where these decisions kind of relate to the grander scale, what I'm talking about.
You mean on Plus or Big ESPN?
Even Plus, because Plus is a paid.
Plus for sure, Plus cussing should be allowed.
Exactly, because we are paying you as ESPN, which does translate to the Big ESPN argument as well. But you're right, George. I'm mainly talking about Plus. You're getting behind it. You're not just getting behind it by putting your name next to UFC. You guys are being symbiotic with each other with this whole pay-per-view scale, and that whole pay-per-view scale is another thing that's bringing you over to ESPN Plus, something you're being asked to buy. And I'm not sure about the censorship when guys are trying to get really good post-fight speeches, but I can't hear it. Chito Vera, he's a really excited dude. Chito Vera curses. I'm sorry, but he had some really good things to say after his exclamatory expressions of his emotion that I would argue he earned. I don't like that. I don't like that we're having to pay for that, and I don't like censorship, especially when we're having to pay for it, and especially when it's not.
Especially because cable isn't technically like CBS, Fox, ABC. You know, technically, I think they're not supposed to abide by those 7 words and all that stuff. So
all
I can think of is Disney. Disney has just probably put the kibosh on it. You know, on all of their companies that this is the way it's going to work. But, man, ours is an edgy sport on a weekend, and usually a lot of those channels will allow some of that cussing as of about, I think it's 10 Eastern, 7, I don't know. But I hear exactly what you're saying. And plus, a couple of them have just been slip-ups, and sometimes the slip-up's going to happen.
Yeah, it's not even that
only
big.
if you continuously do it, then I think the FCC rules are then that somebody from that channel is supposed to alert you that they prefer you not do that. But
I just feel like they get trigger happy with the guys with sloppy English, you know, when they have the half Spanish or half Asian or something, you know, kind of with the English.
Yeah.
And it's like, he only cursed once there. We don't have to do a repeat bleep. I want to hear the rest. Like, there shouldn't be a reason why I'm not being – bleeping is one thing, but they're doing – I've never heard a sloppier bleeping job to where I'm not able to put these sentences together. And even UFC production knows how important that is, because even guys that are fighters that aren't about the promo stuff, they know what it comes down to, and they're like, this is your moment. Have a name ready. Because, you know, it's that is your moment, especially with the Reebok era. There's not a lot of room to promote yourself. And we're going to intrude that. And I'm not trying to make it a big thing, that big of a deal, but that's my one tiff.
Yeah, no, fair points. And I also felt that way. I thought I wasn't just missing words; I was missing sentences, and I was like, "What is all this going on?"
Yeah.
Very frustrating. All right, now we talked a lot about Justin Gaethje inside the octagon. Outside the octagon, there was what some are calling almost like an incident. I didn't see it that way, honestly, but he did a post-fight interview with Karen Bryant, Tyron Woodley, and Paul Felder. While he was there, just like the thousands that we've seen, they went through their sequence of, hey, congratulations, take us through the finishing sequence. I think they talked about the coach's reaction, and it went from Karen to Tyron or Paul Felder, fellow UFC lightweight. Paul at one point said, I would love to fight you next, and we're going to play a few cuts from, everything that Gaethje talked about, but let me just, set it up for you guys. So Paul basically told him respectfully, I would like to fight you at some point. And I think he was also trying to finish something that he had started when he defeated James Vick, and that was that when he was asked, who we'd like to fight, he had tossed out some names out there of somebody that he would like to fight, and Gaethje happened to be one of those. So all he was doing was circling back, finishing that, in no way disrespectful at all, in no way trying to take away the shine of Justin Gaethje. But apparently Justin Gaethje played it off then at that moment. I thought I had to go back and actually see that, and I thought it was going to be a little bit more confrontational, and it wasn't. It actually went pretty smooth. Karen also went to bat. He said, oh, why are you trying to get your boy beat up? And then Justin Gaethje subtly just said, hey, I'm higher in the rankings. You're a couple wins away from that. They kind of laughed it off. One guy said he was kidding, but apparently when Justin went to the back, he said that was bullshit. That
they're taking away from his shine, right?
Right, and that I caught that first before I caught what had happened. And when I went back to see what had happened, I didn't really see them stealing any shine. So luckily, Justin has now tweeted to Karen, "It's all cool, it's all good." But did you see how that story kind of took off and it was being shared and talked about and everything? Do you guys have a problem with current fighters interjecting themselves like Thompson did versus Woodley, I believe? I think he – no, who did – Ferguson I had a confrontation once with Kevin Lee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thompson I thought had something with Woodley. Like there's been a few of those, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, my point is, do you guys have a problem with the fighter kind of saying, hey, I'd like to fight you next, if they've been brought there to do that job?
It's tough. I think that the problem with a lot of people having in that role, so that stuff doesn't come up, so that we pay these people their moment. And I'm definitely all about that. But it's strange because it's hard. I was reminded of this because Josh Emmett fought this weekend, so I went back to watch his footage. And I don't know if you remember when they had the illegal kick. They had DC giving his opinion, breaking it down from cage side, post the show's already done, so he's able to get out from his seat. And then they had Dominic Cruz up in the desk. And Cruz was saying, oh, it was okay, but Jeremy Stevens is also his boy Alliance guy, right? So it was one of those obvious things where you're trying to hash out real rules, and now biases kind of come to play. As far as the calling out goes, that's tricky. I want to say no, but how often is it really apropos, guys? It really isn't, and it wasn't just because that they're two guys who arguably makes sense. They're two dogs in the same division, but this has happened before. In fact, I would argue that the first altercation that took place in the ring after Justin Gaethje beat James Vick, because Paul Felder was giving him that interview, I thought that was more like dicey or quote-unquote controversial, if anything, or confrontational, not controversial, more confrontational. Felder still played it well, but you could kind of tell, like, oh, he used his moment to get one on me when he said, oh, I heard you want to fight me. And then Felder was like, well, yeah, and he was being polite about it, but also, I'm going to answer it if you say yeah. So he goes, yeah, and Gaethje goes, nah, I'll take the other fight. And kind of just like to be a dick, but also to make a clear joke. And Felder laughed it off. And even Coach Trevor Whitman, you could tell, kind of came over and was like, hey, easy, and did the smoothing over to where, to George's point, I saw it in reverse order as you, George. I actually saw the post-fight show, and then, like, this morning I'm actually trying to catch up on news, and I'm like, wait, what happened? And I went back, and I didn't catch Gaethje's interview, which I caught up with earlier today, but I was like, I watched the same show. I didn't catch any of that. I saw when Gaethje was up there.
I was like, looking at my chops thinking, wow, these guys must have really, like, did Tyron have to get in the middle or something?
Yeah.
And it was actually really, really pleasant.
The most hardest thing that was said, guys, was Gaethje saying, oh, you guys want to get this guy beat up? You want to get him beat up over here? And he pointed to Felder. And that was the most, like, but then Felder played it perfectly. He went, come on, man. Like, he stood up for himself, but also was a bit comical. Like, he had that right tone.
He did right.
He did it perfectly.
All right, we have cuts from Justin Gaethje's post-press conference in UFC Philadelphia. So by now he's already done. He's already sat with the hosts and everything, and now he's in the back with the media. This is Justin Gaethje cut number 1, talking about changing his style for this fight.
Coming off those 2 losses, I was able to. I was 17-0. You can't fix what's not broken. So it was hard for me to look in the mirror and say you need to change your ways. Even though I should have changed, I could have changed them every single time. I fought Eddie, I fought Poirier, because that was my choice. Losing those fights, I was able to go home, listen to the guys around me, and come up with a different game plan, a different method to the madness.
So Dan, remember what I was telling you before the show? I shouldn't say we. I know me for sure. You guys can chime in if you've been guilty of this as well. I've described Justin Gaethje as tough. We know he's got power. Right. We know that he has a wrestling background. He doesn't utilize it. A ton of heart. One of the most exciting fighters out there. But I know at least a couple times where if I've done somebody's show or just here, I've said some of his technique can sometimes be a little bit sloppy, right? I think that's what he's referencing here. He got to 17-0 and he thought, well, what's there to fix? I'm doing great. He's already accepted mentally, because he's a pretty smart guy, college educated and everything, that at some point I'm going to lose. That's just what happens in this sport. So he was ready for that. I think it was just losing, getting the taste of losing is different from preparing to lose. And I think what he did was go back and he's cleaned up a little bit of his hands, his boxing with Trevor Whitman, those kicks. When him and Edson Barbosa were throwing them, of course, Edson Barbosa probably throws the cleanest kick out there, the best technique out there. But Justin Gaethje's not far behind. He's really, really damn devastating with it. Yeah. So I really like how Justin Gaethje, a guy who a lot of us thought, wow, he says he's only got a few fights left and he might retire. You better rush to watch him fight in person. You're going to regret it. Now I think he's finding a second wind to his career. He's not taking some of that damage. He still has some tread left on the tires. But yet he's going out there and cleaning up his game, and he looked dangerous, man. After beating Barbosa, I was like, whoa, this good looks really, really good.
Yeah, no, surgical in the sense of he knew what he had to do. He knew exactly what he had to do in that fight, and he went out and did it.
Yeah. Now, this guy, he's not about the call-outs. He says he's there to make money, but you know he wants to be a world champ. Now, they go hand in hand. Sometimes fighters don't see it that way. They're all about the money, and they feel like the belt is like a distraction. I wish they'd realize the belt will give you money, but regardless, this is Justin Gaethje in cut number 2 talking about what's next for him.
I just hate making things up. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. They're going to pay me a lot of money. That's what I'm here for. And I want to be the world champion. I want to fight Khabib. I think I'm one of the biggest threats to his title, and that's my goal. So whoever I have to go through.
Okay. I would politely disagree with him, and I'm going to tell you why. He says he doesn't care and he doesn't want to get into the game of Felder, me and you, Minneapolis, you're from that area, we're going to get down. You know, he's not into that. Okay, fine. I understand that. However, here's why it matters. Do you see the way Ben Askren didn't just let the UFC match him up against Lawler? Remember Dana White was saying, this is the one we're going to do? He said it on Fight Night, and he said it in subsequent interviews for like a week or two. Nope, that's the way we're leaning. I don't know why he's out in London with Till and Matt. Nope. Well, guess what? He's got Masvidal now. He's kind of stood his ground a little bit, and he said he didn't want to do that fight, and him and Robbie Lawler are not running him back. So when you do talk, even if it's not the pro wrestling type of promo, if you tell people a little bit of what you want and point in your career in a certain direction, there is a very good chance, especially a guy like Justin Gaethje. If I'm a UFC suit and you two are trying to talk me out of it, I might go, look, I know I'm outvoted, but guys, that's Justin Gaethje, man. That guy fights his ass off out there. Let's give him what he wants. That's why I wish he would speak up a little bit more in that direction to get what he wants when he wants, because he deserves it.
Stipe Miocic. Look where he's sitting
exactly.
right now. And he did almost exactly what he did right there and what he said. It's almost word for word the exact same thing. He's getting passed over.
I think the fighters think that we're trying to say, Justin, who do you want next? And then when he says it, we're all going to run to Twitter and go, hey, so-and-so, did you hear Gaethje? He called you. Wow. We're not going to do all that. Reporting may be done, and that's what it might look like, but that's not what's happening. We're trying to build fights here. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I agree. That was a great example with the Stipe one, and I agree completely, although I will say if anybody has room to be stubborn, I do think it's Gaethje because, at least for right now, the way he fights, even if he's like, you know what, I don't care what the UFC does. I'm going to keep talking about how their rankings don't make sense. I ain't going to ask for fights. He can stay on this and even double down on it. And I think he is so exciting that if he wins, he's going to get pushed to these goals and have an easier time at the negotiation table in the future. However, I will say is that only goes so far, to but Goza's point, when you have a championship. Even if you're like a guy like you said, George Gaethje, who he prepared to lose, that was fine. But you have much more to lose when you have a gold title and everything that comes with it. And I think that's what kind of slipped behind Stipe's mind, because sure, he did lose, and you always lose a little bit of leverage of a loss. But kind of like what Goza was saying, like he really did everything right up until that point. He was just knocking dudes out on his way to the title and knocking dudes out who came to his door to take that title. And look where he's at now. So it only lasts for so long.
Yeah. All right. Let's continue here a little with Justin Gaethje. We'll do one more, and then we'll take calls because, as you can tell right now, no Masvidal. It's 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893. Now, he's going to continue preparing for the ultimate goal. This is Justin Gaethje in cut number 3.
I want to fight for the title, so I don't know. I don't know what I have to do. I'm going to put my energy into preparation, and I'm going to be ready to do that to every single person that I face across the octagon for me that's trying to take everything that I've ever worked for. That's about it. I mean, again, you know, I hate talking shit. You guys see how much I love to fight. It doesn't matter. You know, you will regret if you never see me fight live. I'm sorry it was so short, but I'm going to continue to try and make it like that.
You don't have to talk shit though to get what you want. All you got to do is lead people in a direction. You don't have to say, I want this guy and I'm going to beat the crap out of him because he sucks. You don't have to say that. You just say, this is who I want and where I want to go.
And he does have an opinion of who's in front and who's in back. And he's telling Felder, you need a couple before you get to me. So right away he's eliminating Felder. But remember, by also not pointing to someone else or saying something, you know, you don't have to say a name. You can say, give me a top 3. You see what I'm saying? By doing that, you're kind of like you're confusing fans, you're confusing media, you're probably confusing the promotion as to what you really, really want. And then you show the disappointment. Hey, why is Cowboy ahead of me? You know, he had concern over the rankings. Hey, why should Felder maybe steal my moment or fight me when he's only one behind? When he's only one behind me? Well, that's not that bad for 9 to call out 8. That's not that unreasonable. It's not 19 was calling out 8. It's just number 9. Paul Felder's probably going, what did I do? I'm number 9. You're number 8. What's so bad about this? But go ahead.
I don't know what it is. I agree, by the way, but I don't know what it is. Something about what Ghost said reminded me of Al Snow from the WWF. Maybe you should take the Al Snow approach and just talk to the crowd instead of the people. What does everybody want? Gaethje. What does everybody need? Gaethje.
I can't wait for his next fight, man. Justin Gaethje's the man. That's for damn sure. That's one thing we can all agree on. All right, we'll get back to some of these cuts right now. Let's talk to Brad from Mississippi. What's up, Brad?
Hey, guys. How are y'all?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you. What I was going to say is, a guy like Gaethje, talking about the rankings, somebody like him who has such entertainment value, they can skip the line at any moment. The UFC just needs to determine whether or not they want to put him in front of a true killer so early, or try to make sure they can capitalize on the momentum that he can provide. And you got to think about it. The last two fights ended in the first round, and everybody wants to give him props on maybe some technique. But, I mean, you go around 2, 3, 4, you're still going to get old Justin Gaethje. Don't ever think that dude is ever going to mature into a different type of fighting style. That's not going to happen. He doesn't really have the mental wherewithal to even stop himself from going down that type of fight. The only reason people are saying that, it's great. He ended the fight in the first round, but get somebody that lasts 2 and 3 rounds, he's still going to go back to being Gaethje. That being said, just remember that he can kind of go and fight any place he wants to as far as in the division. It's because of the fact that he has that type of entertainment value that other people spend a career getting. He went into the UFC, gained it immediately, and has been getting fight bonuses and headlining cards ever since. So there's a big uniqueness about Gaethje that he possesses, but he's still Gaethje. Don't give him too many props about being calculated and having a lot of strategy involved. He will still go back to being him. UFC just needs to determine whether or not they want to put him in there with a true killer, or try to make as much money off of him, build him a lot of momentum before they put him in with somebody like Khabib or something.
All right, Brad. Thank you very much for the call. Okay, so I got 2 things to say. Okay. One, I feel like every fighter from round 1 to round 5 gets sloppier. Even the most technical fighters, you're just more tired, and you take a lot of damage in this sport. So it's not like a quarterback where his first spiral is probably going to be as tight as the one in the 4th quarter, because it's just a spiral. I mean, unless you're getting hit or something like that. In this sport, I think they all just kind of get sloppy as they go. 2, I'll meet him halfway on one thing. He may be right. He could revert to the old Gaethje. Just put your head down. He likes to put his head down, bite his mouthpiece, and wing him. Maybe. I don't know. But we haven't seen Gaethje. My point was after the losses. We've only seen him have 2 fights, and they ended in the first round. So we haven't seen him in rounds 4 or 5 after the losses. I think the losses did something to him, because you can tell he does. That's why he doesn't want to take last-minute fights, and that's why he talks about his preparation and his state of being, and why he puts him. He builds the other guy up to be almost the perfect fighter, and he goes out there with a certain mindset that he has to tear somebody's head off because he's afraid of somebody tearing his head off. And why should he be afraid? He's one of the meanest mofos out there, but he says it himself. I'm scared out there.
There's not a 3? Are you sure there's not a 3?
There's just 2.
I was waiting for that 3rd.
Dan, do you have a 3rd?
I thought the 3rd was going to be.
Did I say ABC or something? Or
check out the big brain on Brad.
Check out the
I thought that's
I should have been here. 1.
No, that was a good point on Brad. And yeah, you said it. You said it well there, George. Because I agree. I said something similar too, as well as he's smarter than he leads on. That doesn't mean we're saying he's a smart fighter or the smartest fighter, but he's more smarter than he leads on, and there's more to it, like what George is saying, based off of Gaethje's own admissions here. I will say though that he laid out 2 options, and I will say it's going to be the latter, Brad. And those 2 options Brad laid out in his call was UFC. Are they going to take their time to build someone up and not give a fighter a crazy monster too soon, or are they going to capitalize on momentum? And if you've been watching the UFC, you know the answer is always capitalize on momentum. When is the UFC ever worried about throwing a guy into the fire?
True.
In fact, they're usually, let's be honest, if you can sense my sarcasm, they're throwing guys into the fire too fast, is the criticism for hardcores and myself.
Real quick, what was your B? Sorry, your second choice for the daily debate. You went with Cerrone, Iaquinta winner, but what would have been your B?
Paul Felder.
What would have been your B? Because you chose.
My B would have been his, but
no, who'd you choose?
Felder, but I would have been with Goes, but on the opposite side of Goes. Goes was a heavy lean to Iaquinta with his caveat, and mine. Not that I lean either way. I just think that Cerrone versus Gaethje does more for my man juices. That was a really bad way. It just gets me going. It gets me going more. It's a more sexy matchup.
I'm trying to think what my, because I think I think Felder could really wind up being his next opponent.
Think so?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like Justin's excited about it, but I'm thinking that could happen. Because the UFC likes to capitalize. It sucks that they're not going with Edwards and Masvidal, but it's not like there isn't Masvidal-Askren heat either. But I don't know. I think Tony Ferguson, we used him in the example of he's ready to go. Tony Ferguson's not ready to go. He's not proclaimed himself ready to go.
But he does sound better.
With the Iaquinta and Cerrone possibilities. That's why I was asking you guys what your second choice was.
I was going to say that of the top names, I said why I like Felder from a stylistic standpoint. Not like him as in pick. I don't know who I'd pick in that fight, but why I think he'd have more of a chance than people may initially give credit to. But I will also say that I think it's a smart guy for as far as Felder trying to move up, looking at those big names and who's looking from a manager perspective, who's beatable, who does the most for you. You got to look at these certain factors and make sure everything lines up right. And I was going to say Gaethje would, but then I remembered this time at an event called UFC 223, guys, where Felder almost got the title shot to Khabib, and now kind of has me thinking out loud here. Who do you think Felder has a better chance to beat, Khabib Nurmagomedov or Justin Gaethje? I think we like Felder, and we're being fair to Felder, but I think being fair and liking Felder, we can say that he would be an underdog in both those bouts.
I would like him. I think he would do better against Justin Gaethje. Khabib looks
so too.
Like he mauls people on the ground. And Felder, not to say he hasn't handled himself out there, because remember Oliveira had him in some pickles?
Yeah.
But that's a different type of pickle. I mean, you're being pretzeled up while the other guy is basically a grizzly bear pounding your face in. And he's very hip heavy and top heavy. I mean, I don't know.
That's a tough question because I feel like Justin is going to give Khabib what he wants, and that's probably that leg kick. And I think Khabib will just grab that leg, and then from there it's another 4.5 minutes of him just pounding on the ground, right? Maybe. I mean, Justin does have good wrestling. Oh, it's tough, dude.
Okay, a couple more of these, and then we got to go to break. This kind of takes it in another direction, but he does. This is him talking to the media, and this is him talking about his interaction with Felder. Cut for it, please, on Gaethje.
We couldn't see it down here, but I know you're just on the post that show of Paul Felder, and someone tweeted out that you guys maybe had a little bit of a moment there.
Yeah, he's trying to steal my thunder. Him and Karen is bullshit. But
what happened?
He tried to say he wanted to fight me.
Not interested in that one?
You're doing it again.
Right.
See, I think Mike Bond, that was Mike Bond's voice from MMA Junkie. I think he just conceded, but he was confused. He hadn't heard what happened. None of them heard. That's why they said what happened. Justin led us to believe that some bullshit had taken place. And again, I circled back to it. So I heard Justin talk to the media before I actually saw what happened. And in seeing it, it didn't look like bullshit to me. But I just said that 5 minutes ago, so I don't want to keep going with it. But he stops Mike Bond in his tracks, and Mike Bond was respectful because he really had nothing to go on. I think had he had seen it, maybe he would have said, it didn't look like that to me, but it's not about Mike Bond. It's about Justin Gaethje. I think Gaethje just, I don't know. I'd like to ask him in studio one day, just, are you anti-media a little bit for a while? Or fans, or have you lost your taste for, I guess, doing media? Because he was always so much fun to talk about, but in that certain little press conference that he had, he was a little bit standoffish with some of the guys and gals.
A little bit, but, Mike Bond, the MMA Junkie guy, if he doesn't ask that question, then he's going to get asked, why didn't you ask that question? Because that's your job to ask that question. And so
Justin played the card as, you guys don't know what it's like to be in there. You'll never know. You haven't been in there, so you don't know what we go through. And Justin, I don't think I've ever seen him with a lanyard on him. He doesn't know what it's like to be on our side, to have to ask what the questions that millions are wondering. Millions who are fans of you and want to see you fight again and can't wait to see you fight again, they have certain questions. Because you put yourself in a spot as a public figure where you're going to get torn up, where we're going to praise you when you win, and when you lose, some people are going to tear you, unfortunately, because not everybody's a good person.
I've never ran for president, but I think I'm allowed to have an opinion on the laws that happen in this country. I mean, I've played soccer before. I played baseball, I played football, but I've never played it to the level that these guys. So does that mean I don't understand what's going on? I mean, you can play these games all day.
Yeah.
Who's his management, by the way?
Ali.
Ali?
Yeah. Ali's got Khabib and Justin. We're going to break right now. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Justin and Khabib. We'll talk a little bit about the audio. It looks like we have some of that audio as well from the ESPN desk, so you guys can form your own opinion. And then we'll also talk back about Eddie Alvarez, the loss that he took, and maybe circle back to some of these high-profile losses from previous years. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 93.
Here's Gorgeous George and Goes.
Oh, my butt fell asleep. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
All right, well, let me do this read, and then you can talk about your butt. Bryce Harper returns to Washington for the first time as a member of the Phillies, and Mad Dog Sports Radio will be all over it. Join Christopher Mad Dog Russo as he broadcasts live from Nationals Park for Harper's first trip back against his former club. It's Mad Dog Unleashed tomorrow at 3 Eastern on Mad Dog Sports Radio, Channel 82, and streaming on your phone, and at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. All right. If you look at MMA Junkie, the rumors tab, you'll see, wow, there's not a UFC this week. That heavy first quarter is over, and we don't have a UFC until UFC 236 on April 13th. In fact, there's no Bellator and there's nothing else. However, aside from Final Four, if you still want some good combat sports, this week is Bare-Knuckle 5. Shout out to our guys. Chris Lytle, he was here in studio. He's a friend of ours. We've known him for a long time. He's not on this card, but if you'll recall, he was here, and so was David Feldman, president of Bare-Knuckle. At the time, they hadn't even done the Cancun show, but a lot of people are really, really talking up Bare-Knuckle. It started off as like, what are they doing? You know, what's going to happen? But people are enjoying Bare-Knuckle, and it's now that this promotion specifically, which is Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship, they're on Bare-Knuckle Fighting Championship 5, and they got two names who are very well known from the MMA world. It's Artem Lobov versus Jason Knight. They're headlining Saturday, April 6th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Now remember, these guys work off the pay-per-view. All right? If you want to catch their free prelims, you can do that on Facebook Live and Fight-TV. Fight-TV is available on many streaming devices, including Android, Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, PlayStation, all that stuff. To order the main card, it's a pay-per-view, and all the major satellite and cable providers will have it, like Bell, Apple TV, Android, DirecTV, Dish, Fios, Fire TV, all that stuff. So get on that. You really, really will enjoy it. Stitch Duran has been doing some cutman work with them, and he really, really likes it. He stays busy, that's for sure. Those guys, you know, they go after it. Chris Lieben, I believe, is now coming over to Bare-Knuckle, although he won't be on this card. He has come over to this promotion. Beck Rawlings has been on this promotion. They're doing well.
How do you argue with that main event, though? When you look at it and just you look at the personalities involved, just the personalities involved are enough to make me want to watch. Then you get their skill sets and you go, hey, okay, there's some things there. They're both just really tough guys. Like, remember, Cub Swanson came to the defense of Artem Lobov at one time and said that fight was hell. Like, that guy just wouldn't stop coming forward. How many people say the same thing about Hick Diaz? Like, this is great. I love it. I'm in.
What's up with these Southern dudes on the rise? We had Bryce Mitchell. Of course, we all love the OG Jason Knight. I wonder if Jason Knight, by the way, is going to be getting any advice from a low-key junkie favorite of the Southern Love, Nate Landwehr. You know, Nate the Train's got a lot of experience facing Russians. Maybe give a little advice over to Jason Knight.
And I apologize. Chris Lieben is on this card.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he is on this card. He's fighting at 205. The other guys are headlining at 145. So now I'm looking at bareknuckle.tv. So that was my bad there. I had seen the news of Chris going over, and he had put out a video a few weeks ago. But Chase Sherman is back. He'll be fighting. Remember him? Former UFC heavyweight. Isaac Valley Flag. He's been around for a minute in mixed martial arts. He's there. Johnny Bedford, he's going to be fighting on this fight card as well. So lots of MMA names that you are definitely familiar with. But I just don't see how Lobov and Knight's going to suck. That's going to be a good fight.
That's going to be a great fight.
Yeah.
There's some cool names on here. Rusty Crowder. Like, I wouldn't let a guy named Rusty Crowder watch my kids, but I would certainly watch him fight.
Yeah. Bobo O'Bannon.
Yeah, there we go.
He looks like he can get down.
Bobo O'Bannon sounds like they should be on a tag team with Britton Hart, who's up there third from the top.
You want me to see if I can get the poker room to announce those names?
Bobo O'Bannon? Yeah.
You know, one time somebody, so there's a poker room right next to our studio, and one time I was sitting here. It was in the middle of the day, and the guy just starts. I think he started off with like Clancy Wiggums, and like he just went through a bunch of Simpsons characters before somebody actually like tapped him on the shoulder and go, "What are you doing, you idiot?" But somebody had given him a list of Simpsons characters, and he was just leaving them off.
That's funny. All right, now I wanted to finish off one thing here with Justin Gaethje. Let's go back to him and Felder. All right, we're going to go in reverse here. We found a couple cuts there of when he's sitting there on the ESPN desk, and I want you guys to hear him talk with, it's Karen Bryant, Tyron Woodley, and Paul Felder. You'll hear those two first, and then you'll hear him talking to the media about his interaction with Felder. So let's go with UFC Philly 1, please.
You talked about who you wanted next. You talked about the guys above you in this sport. I just want to say and throw my name in the hat. If none of them guys are lining up to fight you, brother, I'm putting it down here right now. You know that there's some tough dudes in here, and I feel like eventually, whether it's now or whether it's later, me and you are going to put on a show for these fans someday. And I say that, honest to God, in the most respect possible, because I enjoy watching you fight, brother.
Yeah,
and congratulations on the dominant win.
Thank you. Hey, it's one at a time. You got a couple guys in front of you.
Who's in front of him? Who's in front of him, Justin?
I'm just kidding. I honestly.
What are rankings at?
Yeah, who do
the
you
rankings
want?
don't mean crap. They just moved Cowboy in front of me just because they wanted to. He beat number 15. It's like,
now,
let's
is that
throw him
something
up
you
in
want
there.
because of that? Would you like to face Cowboy eventually?
I don't care, dude. Whatever.
He's a fought much at lightweight.
He came down, fought number 15. They put him at number 7, moved me to number 8.
See, that confuses me because he says the rankings don't matter, but he's tripping on Cerrone being in front of him.
Well, I think he's saying that's probably why he thinks that the rankings don't matter, is because of things like that.
All right, but he also says, who do you want? Would you want to fight Cerrone next? And he goes, I don't care. But yet he does care because when Felder proposes himself, he says, you still need a couple of fights. So he's kind of sorting out the landscape of 155 while also saying it doesn't matter, he doesn't care. It's a little confusing to me as a fan. I'm thinking
a little bit.
Well, we're trying to figure it out. Help us out, and let's figure out what you want. That's what we want, is what you want. And you can be as biased as you want because this is your moment. This is your spotlight. So say what you want, brother. This is on you.
I thought Felder did it in a respectful way.
Right. All right. Now this is Gagey responding to where. Well, this is ranking talk. This is cut number 2.
Well, here's a reminder for you, Justin. Of course, we know there's some interesting things happening at the top. Poirier, of course, will be fighting Max Holloway soon for the interim title there. Tony might be out for a little bit. We've got Ali Aquinta, Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee's fighting at welterweight.
Yeah, he's going up as well.
I'm a prize fighter.
But Paul Felder's name is right next to yours, Justin. Isn't that convenient?
Now it is because they keep dropping me down after winning.
You're telling me that his spinning elbows and your style of fight wouldn't make for
you
just
like this guy, don't you?
I do,
don't
very
get
much.
Beat up?
No, listen.
Oh,
I just feel like you guys will both walk out of there with at least $50,000 extra dollars.
I'm going to instigate it.
I really don't care. When the time comes, it's kill or be killed, and it's you or me. I don't care who it is. It could be you, it could be Nate, it could be Donald, it could be Khabib. I don't care.
See, all that was pretty fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's why when it surprised me a little bit for my first reaction to see the media with Gagey and for it to look like it bothered him.
I think the way Karen said it, I think maybe she just misread Justin, because if I were in that spot, I would have been able to tell, all right, he's not feeling this. Maybe I shouldn't go this route. I think it all worked out, and if anything, maybe it worked against Justin because he did kind of come off like he was a little aggravated by it all. But I think you could tell right away in like his first couple responses, he's just not feeling this.
Yeah, and I will say, I hate this excuse of, well, Justin's Justin, or that's just him. I think that's the most laziest excuse for anything, but I will say, Justin definitely is one of those dudes where, I mean, you kind of referenced before, maybe you got the feeling he doesn't enjoy it as much. Maybe there has been a turn. I'm not denying that. But to me, he's always just seemed like one of those dudes who just doesn't like doing the media how he's wired. And, you know, he's a special kind of cat. That's why he fights the way he does. And it's because he's so a hard edge and so stubborn. And I don't mean that as an attack or a bad thing. I'm just meaning that for all the good and bad that comes attached with it. He's a stubborn dude, but that's why we love him so much. So I definitely don't want to lay down that excuse, but I've always got that vibe from him. Like when he was in here, I felt like, did I say something? I don't even think I officially, picked him. I was on Junkie yet or anything like that. Like he could have seen a pick or something. Like, oh, this guy didn't pick me, but I've never had the feeling like a fighter wanted to strangle me for whatever reason. And I was like off to the side. Like I think Goz was here, and I was kind of just taking notes off to the side. And if he like over here, and every time I looked up, either like I was standing by his point of focus, but it just felt like he was like death staring, and I'm doing that thing where I start looking behind me like, is he looking at me? Oh, he's looking at. I'm gonna pretend like I'm not looking at him because I don't. You don't want to look into the bear's eyes. They're gonna take it as a challenge, right?
Yeah. No, he's actually really, really a nice fella. We've never really had a bad interaction with him. That's why the only thing I can think of is just maybe the losses. Sometimes the fighters come back a little bit jaded, because media writes them off, or fans say things, or their words get misconstrued, or whatever. And that's not just pertaining to Justin. A lot of fighters take that a lot personal. Not like the mainstream sports. See, in baseball, you can lose today, and you'll get those microphones, and they just go through the motions, because the quicker you finish, the quicker you can take a shower and go home to your millions of dollars that you get paid. So they're a little bit more used to it. But those people will say, it wasn't your best night, you know. And if you went 0 for 4 and struck out all 4 times, of course not, it wasn't your best night. But you say that to an MMA fight, you try getting in there, you know. I mean, it's different, man. All right, this is Gaethje, not necessarily pitching his next fight, but he feels like he's got something for the champion. Let's go to Gaethje. Cut 5, please.
My ability to stop takedowns. I am a Division I wrestler. I was a Division I All-American. I placed 7th in 2010. And my ability to scramble and avoid takedowns is something he's never faced.
He's right. True. I mean, I know April Trujillo had a wrestling background, but he got tossed around. And then Iaquinta's got a wrestling background, but this Gaethje can boast that he's a Division I All-American. I think he took 7th place in the last year that he wrestled. Ironically, in that same arena he shared on one of the interviews. I want to do one more cut, and then we're going to take our last break. I thought this was a really nice message that maybe kids can listen to. If you want to be the best at something, you got to be driven. And this is Justin talking about how easy it is to be a fuck-up. This is Gaethje. Cut 6, please.
It feels so good to do things. It's so hard, but it feels so good to accomplish things through hard work, through making good decisions, through making sacrifices. Being a fuck-up is easy, but doing things right and living by a code is something that's not easy. And I really am glad that it's paying off for me and my family and the people around me.
That's true, man. A lot of fighters give up a lot to compete. Okay. All right, we're going to take our last break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. When we come back, we'll finish up here a little bit. And I want to circle back. Well, let's just come back. Let's just come back, and maybe we'll finish up with UFC Philadelphia, because it looks like we might be a little bit close on time.
Alexa, play Fight Nation on Sirius.
They were abducted by aliens and instantly returned for raiding all their snacks. They are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Dan, I know you won't be here till Friday, so I want to give you first opportunity. Was there something off the UFC Philly card or ONE or Bellator that you want to talk about? Because we kind of talked a lot about Gaethje Barbosa. We talked a lot about the lightweights. We discussed a little bit about Eddie Alvarez over at ONE and Syed Awad and Gertz. Maybe we didn't talk about that too much, but off the card, was there anybody that was impressed? I know you always like to give a little bit of shine on some of the prelim fighters.
Man, Sadiq Yusuf, Shaman Moraes, I think, that was one that a lot of us, we're excited about, and it lived up to it. I think we got to see a lot from two guys who, I know Shaman kind of was labeled a prospect back at WSOF when he faced Marlon Moraes, but two younger talents, and I just will say, Awad Gertz just giving them some love from Bellator. It was a classic fight, and I believe we all did pick Awad, but more importantly, I think I know I said at least in the breakdown that this is one of those fights where you can write the fight of the night check if Bellator gave those out, and nobody would argue. I think that statement proved to be correct.
Have you ever noticed that the Temecula cards are always pretty good for Bellator?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the fighters or what, but they've always been pretty good.
It's true. Come strong.
I know last time I was there, it was the women that kind of carried the card. And Malene McFarland had beaten, I think, the young lady from Colombia.
Lara, Alejandra Lara. Yep.
And then Valeria Letourneau had a great fight there as well.
Yeah.
I think Emily Ducat. I can't remember. I just remember the ladies took it over, man. It was really, really cool.
That was actually a battle.
Well, Colombia took a loss this weekend, too. Sabina Matzo. That was a promotional debut. There's a promotional debut.
Just couldn't keep her
off. Well, Marina Moroz, once she got within the range of staying out of taking a kick to the head, which was very, very smart, it just looked like Sabina Matzo. She didn't go from being a kickboxer to throwing some hands and doing something about it there. Now in the third round, Sabina Matzo kind of created that space, and she kept throwing a couple of those leg kicks.
Yeah.
But by then, I think it was just a little bit too late. But Marina Moroz was kind of smart because it was close quarters up against the cage, just wearing her down. A lot of these guys ladies were fighting for head position, sneaking in some knees. So I think more than anything, the one thing we forget is not that Marina Moroz has tons of fights, but Matzo's probably only on her 6th fight, and she's so young.
True.
Could be just experience she needed.
Well, Moroz also, the reason why I stayed away from it is because I said Moroz, even though I wasn't impressed with her style, she took a year off, was at American Top Team. We could see a completely different fighter, and we did. She's never fought like that before. She's never gone for a single takedown. She's only gone for guard pulls, I think. So, I mean, in Matzo's defense, she was preparing for a fighter she couldn't have prepared for.
Joe Schilling, by the way, defeated Keith Berry. Andre Korshkov got a win over Mike Jasper. And how about a shout-out to Daniel Strauss?
Yeah.
After everything he's been through,
awesome.
From being told he may never walk again to not only walking, being able to train, to do a full camp, to fight, and to win a fight.
You got to finish.
Got to finish against Shane Crutchin.
That was very cool.
Yeah, dudes with dreads from Florida did well this weekend.
Yeah.
Des Green as well on the UFC card.
Yep.
A lot of people could.
All right, we are going to be back tomorrow, obviously. We'll be back in 22 hours, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, with another edition of MMA Junkie Radio. Don't have any guests lined up just yet, but we will definitely have a few for sure. I know Goes is working on somebody. He just asked me for a spot. I already have a couple invites out there, and then I definitely got to – I may have to threaten Masvidal with the 3-piece and a soda if he's ever in Vegas. We're going to have a problem.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Damn, I owe him a 3-piece and soda for what he did. So.
But what I meant is I'm really going to take him to Popeyes or something and just buy him one. Then talk it over.
3-piece chicken nugget.
Talk it over. Hey, how come you didn't jump on the show? He has weird connection problems. I have him here on WhatsApp, but it's all a mess. So anyway. All right. Thanks, Jumbo Josh, for producing. Welcome back. I hope you had a nice vacation. I hope you had a nice day at work there. I caught some of you on At the Fights. Great job there and great job here. It was great to have you back.
Yeah, great being back, fellas. Sleep was nice, but I missed you boys.
All right. Well, we missed you too. We'll see you, Dan, on Viernes, which is Friday. And, of course, Goes and I will be back. So we are out of here, Junkie Nation. Thanks for the calls. Thanks for participating. We'll see you all tomorrow. Go out there and be a champion.